Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Reliquary, a Catholic podcast on the lives of the saints and understanding modern life through a Catholic lens. Join us with our hosts, Alex and Eli. Today, we're going to talk about our purpose and our mission, as well as our testimony. We'll start with our testimony, and we'll start with you, Eli.
Yeah, so thank you, everyone who decided to listen. So I was not raised in the church. I was raised in a church, but I was not raised in the Catholic Church. My parents were first Episcopalians, then Lutherans for a tad bit, and then we went to the Anglican Church of North America, which I believe is splitting from the Anglican Church now, but that's where we kind of started out. That's where I really started taking faith seriously, I think. Mostly because I was so young with the Episcopalian Church. I was baptized Episcopalian. And then I don't really remember the Lutheran Church that much by any means. So my first memories of being in church are the Anglican Church in North America, the cathedral down in Atlanta, Georgia. And so but I was always a church kid in some regard. I liked going to church. I thought I was smart in Bible study, which was probably incredibly wrong, but kind of easy when there's no one else your grade, and so you have to go with the older kids. But I really appreciated it. I still have fond memories, specifically of certain pastors back there who are all now bishops. But yeah, I grew up that way, had one younger brother, parents together, still together. And my dad had actually grown up Catholic, kind of had not the best catechesis, and pretty much a lot of his siblings ended up falling away from the church to very evangelical churches. Still love them, though. They're great. My extended family's awesome. But my dad ended up having to take my grandmother to Mass. My grandmother was always Catholic, little church woman, little in the actual sense. She was like 4'11". And so she was always the little old church woman. So my dad ended up having to go to Mass, take my grandmother. And so we'd start going to Anglican church in the morning, and then vigil life team mass at in the evening. And eventually I think my entire family kind of just got the sense of there's not that much difference between the Catholics and the Anglicans. Now, this is at the moment, all right? This is fun. But we, specifically my mom and me, started getting really into theology, and I was 15. Yeah, I was 15 at this point, so I had just entered high school and kind of became edgy and rambunctious and thought I knew better than everyone else, but I was still very religious, so I was like trying to find a way to push back. So I did my own research, basically, when it came to why the Anglicans believed what they believed. And I thought after a lot of research, I ended up thinking that it was not a great argument that divorce was not a great way to condemn the Pope. And so there was also just discussions I had with my youth pastor, and I didn't feel like he was fully answering questions. The pastors that my parents were really close with ended up leaving, so there was a new pastor. And my mom had always had friends that were Catholic. My brother is a lot younger than me, so he had no say. He's like, he's young. He's not really thinking about all this stuff. But long story short, my dad kind of came to us as a family and said, I think we should start going to the Catholic Church. And me and my mom said, so do we. And my brother was young, and he probably said something about Aaron Rodgers for all I know. But converted Easter, I think it would have been 2016. Fully brought into the church, fully confirmed. Didn't have to get rebaptized, but everything else fully received into the church. And ended up going to Catholic high school after that, which is that could be a 15-hour podcast, but so we won't get into that fully. I'm sure over time we will, but ended up going to Catholic high school, being surrounded by the Catholic faith. During that time, it was real interesting because I was the church we were going to was a lot more charismatic, and the Catholic high school was a lot more traditionalist. So I kind of got hit with that immediately when I was just happy to be there. Walking in and be like, I'm Catholic. This is correct, right, guys? And everyone's screaming about how the other person's incorrect. But so that was interesting to wade through. But yeah, ended up going to University of North Georgia. Go Nighthawks, I guess, for a year. And did not. When I kind of went, I still went to Mass. I don't think I went to confession that entire year, but I still went to Mass. But the church didn't become my focus point. I really struggled with this idea that only God understood me, like no one else got me. And that I was working in a restaurant at the time, which I do appreciate. It really taught me how to cook. It was not Applebee's. It was a pretty fancy restaurant. But I had a lot of coworkers who you could just describe as pagans. Not like true Wiccans. Well, maybe this one girl. But like they were just of the world. And then the Catholic
very
group.
materialistic. Right.
Yes, very materialistic. And then the Catholic group, I thought I was weird because my hair was this long or whatever. And so I kind of had this real struggle with that. I don't fit in anywhere, but like God gets me, which weirdly enough, I pulled away from the faith because that I kind of took, I guess maybe the approach I had been given, which was the Protestant mindset of it's just you and God thugging it out, like y'all are going through the world. But I ended up dropping out, went to back home down towards Atlanta and, took on different jobs, said college isn't for me. One of those started re-volunteering with the youth group I went to. And once I kind of realized that I was a role model, I say that in all seriousness, but I also think that I play video games with some of these kids sometimes now because they're like 22 now. And so it's like, I was like, well, did I do great with that? But I needed to take it more serious. And I kind of it revigorated some aspects of my faith when I went back home. Ended up realizing COVID hit, actually, and ended up realizing I probably do need a college degree because if all the trades can just get shut down with one swoop, how am I going to make money? And ended up transferring to the University of Franciscan at Steubenville. And yeah, that was interesting. My entire life's been interesting. I'm just going to keep using that adjective. But like, yeah, when ended up going to Franciscan, Coach Pete called me up after, like, called me. Said I was going to play lacrosse up there, did for a while. But Franciscan really invigorated my faith, I think. Really made me understand what it means to be a Catholic and also what it means to do things like missionary work. What made me how to also study the faith, and then take it out to be a missionary or to do mission, to help those who either haven't studied or don't know God at all. That's kind of mainly who I work with these days. So, but yeah, and so I'm very thankful for Franciscan because it really helped me just learn what it means to love God and to love your neighbor. And so, yeah, went off Franciscan, immediately joined an inner city mission organization, which was awesome. I'm so happy I did it, but it made me struggle with my faith too a little bit just because I you work with these kids in awful situations. And you come home and you're like, I believe you, God. Like there is a God and all this stuff, but like, what the hell is happening? More so, like, it's not
It
like
was a
this.
lot.
Yes, it
You
was.
just
Alex.
hearing about it, it was a lot. So give the
Um,
props to him and his wife on that for sure.
yes. Which leads me to my other thing. I am married. I do have children. My wife, I've known since high school. She stuck with me. She's been on this crazy adventure. Not the adventure of life, the adventure of being a missionary in terrible areas of the South. And I'm not that cliche where it's like the adventure of life. No, the adventure of living in bad housing in bad areas in North Carolina. But she's wonderful and I love her very much. I met her in high school. So high school sweethearts. But yeah, it's been an awesome opportunity that God has put me through with really kind of sucker punching me the directions He wants me to go, which has been really, really fun. Honestly, I look back on it and I think it's fun. One of the worst, I mean, best things happened in Greenville was Alex lived next to me in terrible housing. So-
And we didn't even know initially either. It's just we met each other at parish, and I'll give my testimony later.
yes.
And I would always drive by, and I would be like, "Is that a van that has like the monstrance, like that has the Eucharist on it?" Because it's very boldly Catholic,
It
and
was.
it was you the whole time. Like,
The funniest thing is my wife found the directory for that parish.
really,
Yeah,
that's
you're
funny.
not in it. I mean, you are like you're little like you're registered with your email and stuff, but like I had a photo taken. I don't.
I know. Father, he asked me to take a photo, and I was like, I'm gonna be gone that week. He's like, well, we have early photos, and I'm like, I'm gonna be real with you, Chief. I'm not gonna be there. Like,
But yeah, that's kind of just my journey with the faith. I now want to tell a
mm,
funny story that I don't think Alex has ever heard. Your surname, shall we say, and your
mm-hmm.
first name, um, was the same one as my boss in Greenville,
Did
or
not
her
know this.
son, full thing,
Oh, interesting.
right?
Wow.
And when we were doing the festival at
Mm-hmm.
the parish, and you had signed up for like everything to like help out with, and I hadn't met you. I'm looking at the sign up sheet. I'm like, why is he doing this? Like, good on him, but like, why is he driving this far to help with this parish's festival? Like, good for that guy, I guess. And then I met you, and I went, nope, it was him all along.
Yeah, it didn't help though too that I was like near the top because I remember when they made the announcement and I was like, I would love to do service. And next thing you know, that sheet, a couple of the sheets were blank, not a single name on any category for months, and it was just me at the top, and I'm like, clearly I'm not doing 5 committees.
Welcome to the Catholic Church, where your major service work will be directing traffic and moving things up into the attic. Thank you, everyone. Why you should be Catholic. But
That's
yes,
funny.
I kind of
Didn't know
went
that.
quickly, but I find yours testimony a little bit more interesting, so that's maybe why I sped through mine.
Oh,
But go right
well,
ahead.
thanks.
The floor is yours.
I would describe my testimony as like with my early history, be more like there were seeds, being sown of me becoming Catholic that only like, now do I actually realize like, oh, that was Catholic or oh, that makes sense now in hindsight. So, I'm military bred. By that I mean I am the son of a Army veteran. So we moved a couple of times, but mostly stayed around a singular base. And that's kind of where I stayed the rest of my kid life and my childhood, my teenage years. And but basically, Christian family. A lot of it at the beginning was very nominal. You had your Noah Ark books. You would have like we always had an illustrated copy of the Bible, right? And the faith was always talking about an almost allegory, but it wasn't really. explained to me. You just kind of had to get it as you could take it. Like, oh, Jesus died for our sins by getting crucified, and that's getting hanged on this little T, cross. Okay, as a kid, that was your conception of it. It never went beyond there, and so I had this kind of weird, like, just like weird separation, and later on, I ended up becoming actually fairly atheistic, right? I was that edgy kid, this is middle school. And so I was thinking to myself, this is all hogwash, right? But it was getting me into like a very deep depression. And I was having trouble rectifying my own life and meaning without, say, an extrinsic meaning, right? A outside of God meaning. And, you know, I ended up just kind of giving up. And I said, God, I don't believe you, man. But I'm going to try and experiment. That's what I wanted to do. Let's be a scientist. Let's experiment. Now I know that that experiment won't work for everybody. I guess you could say I got lucky, but in said experiment, I was like, God, you love the number three you know, so much. Why don't you try and make this Bible fall? And it was on top of like a curtain. And on the third day, there was a big storm that happened. We had a lightning strike a tree out in front of us, and I actually saw the lightning strike hit this tree, and it looked as if it was going to fall into my bedroom where I was staying in. And instead, it changed directions and fell into my neighbor's yard, right? Into their bushes, into their yard. And, the force of it was so hard, it actually dropped my Bible. It opened the Bible up to something. And, people have asked me, because I've given this testimony before, they go, well, what was in it? Dude, I don't know. I didn't want to know. Like, I was like, okay, God, I believe you. I don't want to know what you were talking about in your wrath or whatever, or your love. I don't know. I believe you. I closed the Bible and I put it back on the bookshelf. And, you know, and it was my grandfather's Bible, right? This was, something that, as these seeds are kind of, getting sown, right? And he was one of the only men that I actually ever asked for prayers. Like I didn't know it at the time, but I was actually, my parents would probably describe it as accidentally interceding, you know, asking for intercession. And so that's what I mean. The seeds were getting sown. So later on, my parents end up, they also have this faithful experience. They get kind of, they start going to this like mega church. I go into the mega church. After a bit, I end up, wanting to be baptized, get baptized there. So in my life, I'm starting to kind of learn what it means to be Christian broadly. But I came from this like Baptist, but not even like regular Baptist, like mega church Baptist environment. And so I had no recollection of history, and I'm a history guy, so this is the irony of it all. Here I am going to a church. I don't know any early church history, but here I am also being like, oh, well, I would love to learn about the American Civil War. And
And
ooh, I love
blockade
the
runners.
blockade runners. Oh, an Age of Sail. Ooh, I sure want to know what Commodore Perry was doing over there in Japan. But like, but I didn't have any, understanding of what was happening, right, in the time after Christ. The time after, Christ starts the ministry. Like, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that happen? And so into college, I'm still going. Now I've gone from like mega church and I'm going to a traditional Baptist church, right? And I meet with the pastor there. He was a friend of somebody I knew from Boy Scouts. And this pastor was. And we would meet for lunch and we would talk theology, just broadly, because I didn't know anything. And I thought he knew things. And later on, he comes to me and he goes, how do you believe what you believe? I go, what, about God? He goes, yeah. And I say, well, look, I don't know. I have it on faith. I mean, that's what we say on your sermons. And I had an experience. I told him the story I told you before, and he wasn't convinced, which fair enough. I don't know what to say. Like, you weren't there. And so he goes, well, I don't know if I can come to believe that. And about a month later, he ended up leaving, like resigning his post as pastor. So I didn't go to Baptist church for a couple of years. I didn't go to any church, right? I held on to the faith personally in the way I saw fit. My parents were like, well, church isn't necessary to go to. So I was like, all right. But I ended up going back to a Baptist church in the town. Eli and I ended up meeting. Um, Now, this is in the town. This is when I'm still Baptist. And I just have this religious moment, right? And I'm like, God, this doesn't feel right. I feel like you're not truly present here. Like, I genuinely felt like God's here, but only kinda, like in spirit or something. And I'm like, there's something missing, and it involves God. And so I go, I pray this prayer. I go into the bathroom in the middle of a sermon, which is probably a big no no. And I pray that, and I don't know if to say I heard or I felt a voice, but I heard a voice that said, Katolikos. And in that moment, I knew I had to become Catholic. The problem was is I didn't know anything that meant. I looked up Katolikos, in the bathroom stall on Google. Like I did, I was
You
like,
didn't tell me that.
yeah. Well, that's the honest truth. Is you're sitting there like, Katolikos, and then the next thing you do then is you start Googling Catholic churches, and I felt drawn to the Catholic church that Eli and I actually met at, and I mean the pastor there was really great. He gave me my first rosary. He said we had no more left. He gave me his own rosary,
Mm.
and from there I just like the first time I went to mass because I actually first met him and he was like, you do know you could go to mass, right? I was like, I didn't know that. And then but the first time I went to mass and you know they're doing the presentation, right, and they're showing the Eucharist, I am just like, this is it. That is what's missing. Like, I'm thinking God is missing because he's not truly present. And so from there, it just kind of snowballed. If you see my necklace here, like I have a, devotion to Mary, right? I was like the most anti-Marian guy out there before that. I was, my now wife. I mean, her family had like a Virgin of Guadalupe, and I went up to them and I was like, you don't genuinely believe that stuff, right? And here I am now. Both of our vehicles have Our Lady of Guadalupe. like both. Both.
I can't believe you said that to your in-laws, and now you're probably like, "Do you understand what this represents? All right, do you grasp it?" Like 2 years later.
Yeah, it was not long ago, actually. It was like 2 or 3 years ago when that happened. And something else to note, yeah, I'm married now to my wife. We recently married. But we had been dating before we got married. We've been dating for 8 years. We were also high school, sweethearts. And she told me that she actually always wanted to get married in the Catholic Church, but she didn't exactly know why, and then she didn't know how to tell me, you know. And so, as I'm going through this faith process, I go up to her and I'm like, honey, I think I'm going to become Catholic. And she's like, you have a whole community here. Like, why are you trying to leave? Like, you have people that you said you're like friendly, and I was friendly with the people at the church. It was really hard, but it ended up happening the way it should have happened. And, you know, the other thing too is I found so many people at our last parish that were just amazing, but also it was more so the comfort and the understanding that comes with the fullness of the church, right, within the Catholic Church. And, and we went to Mass a couple of times, and then she said, okay, I'm going to go through, RCIA. And so we did that, and we got confirmed together in different parishes, but we got confirmed together on the same year. And now we're married, and now I'm here. So it's my that's my story.
Little baby Catholic.
Little baby, all
Little
pretty.
baby Catholic.
I am part of that stat though that says that our diocese had like I think it had one of the largest in America.
Yeah, I think it did, and then it was the largest group ever in America
Yeah,
across all dioceses. I love your story because it's beautiful, and yes, also shout out our old parish, St. Gabriel's, because they were awesome and
beautiful community, amazing
yeah,
people.
so helpful, so really loving, like truthfully. You just knew it wasn't like I don't want to say the fake love.
It
Where
was genuine
yeah, it
love.
was true, genuine, like searching for like trying to find parishes across the country every time I visit where it's like a walk in, it's just like, man, everyone's happy that I'm here, like legitimately. But
And they're always like genuinely for the most part happy in the sense of they're very welcoming to newcomers.
yeah.
And it's not a small community for the size of the building either. It's a big community for the size of the building itself,
Oh yeah.
you know. And but I think also, we might discuss this in later episodes, but between, there are different communities within inside the Catholic Church, right? And this is a community that had basically been, split between, the Hispanic side, Spanish speaking side, and the English speaking side. But come to find out, is they weren't really all that split compared to most other parishes that
Yeah.
you've probably heard about. I spoke really rough Spanglish, and got to talk with people, and I'd practice my Spanish on one of the, you know, on one of the guys that we knew, and it was a great community, and I think that's like when I think of what is the ideal when you have this kind of cross-lingual, cross-cultural Catholic church. I think that's definitely an A plus parish in that kind of view.
It was also the historic Black Church. Yeah, we met at
It
Black
was.
Church. Us two. We met at Black Church.
But I mean, we had a good, we literally, and I think that's what kind of won, I think, in a certain sense, my wife over too, because she had made a comment one time when we both went to a Baptist church together, just like one time. And yeah, she was going in there and she was like, this is, and we were in an area that's not like, it's not like it's like 80 or 90% white, right? This is the South, okay? You could go to a place and it could be 30% Hispanic, 30% black, 30% white. Then the other 10% is, assortment of Asians.
I was gonna
Eh,
say biracial from everyone living next to each other.
well, that too,
Yeah.
that too. That's really more accurate.
Yeah.
But like, but we go into this church and it's all white. And it had that feeling of like, this is an all white church. And you go to St. Gabriel's, and it was a beautiful parish. Everybody treats you kindly. Obviously you have some bad apples every now and again, but most of the time, people were good. And even if we're all sinners, but like, the people that mattered, they came up to you and they inspired you. And here you go, and you look around at the stalls, and I mean, okay, yeah, there's a bunch of guys with tattoos. That's good. Okay, there's a bunch of, yeah, there's a bunch of, so you had guys like white, black, Asian, different. It was a bunch of people, and we're all following in the faith. And I think that was probably something very inspiring because then she didn't have to feel like, oh, this is a place where her, a Hispanic woman, couldn't be. Now, it's a little easier when you're Catholic and Hispanic, but
I was
I'm
about to
just
say.
saying.
Yeah.
But I am also saying, too, like, genuinely, there's a lot of, and you look out to a church and you say, oh, this is church for, it's like for the world, but not of the world. And you look out at those pews and you saw St. Gabriel's, I think you would get it.
Yeah. It was 10 out of 10, which, so we knew each other. We're going on a minute now. And then we both moved opposite directions and
Mm-hmm.
realized that we have nothing to do in the afternoon. I'm kidding, but like some afternoons, some afternoons, especially what for the most part, both of us start work at 7. Or like
Yeah, we both start at 7
yeah,
a.m.
that we started talking. I mean, we were already talking because we're living right next to each other, but we moved, and it was like, what's going to happen now? And then we start talking more and more, and
Mm-hmm.
I do think the one thing that kept coming up was like when we would call each other, or drastically swing by the other's house, and sit in the chair that's out of frame, Alex. But is the just the theme of the church guides the world, and we live in such a chaotic and stressful and just I'll say violent time, that when you look to history and you look to the church and the saints' writings and stuff, that guides us through what we consider modernity. However, there's not a lot of that. A lot of looking back to guide the future,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of what the church has always done. We
Right.
always, and I will say, I was going on a little bit of a serious tangent, but year of St. Francis, I'm so happy for this thing, all right? Pope Leo, I don't care if you're a Bears fan, I am happy with you on that one. But yes, I think we're starting to get that shift a little bit, but still, we realized there's not a lot going on with looking to the saints specifically. A priest in
Right.
Greenville, oh yeah, Greenville, said one time to me that if you pick some saints and really study them,
Mm-hmm.
it's worth all the different types of media or sermons and homilies and modern books you can read. All the knowledge is in that, and I've really taken that to
Mm-hmm.
heart. I'm still thankful for him for saying that. But yeah, I think we just kind of realized that there is a lack of specifically hagiography, but also
Mm-hmm.
theological hagiography, mostly because a lot of the saints are attached to orders, but and
Right.
the orders only focus on their guys, which I'm a little bit guilty of. All right, where's my? Hold on. I'm a little
Yeah.
bit guilty of it myself. That's volume 1, by the way. And so, only focusing on their guys, but to really just how do we look back on the saints' lives and navigate whatever the heck's going on in American
Mm-hmm.
society, Western society, Catholic society, world Catholic society, and just what we can learn from them by doing the historical thing and going to what they actually wrote, what they were able to say. And yeah, Alex, anything on that?
No, I agree because a lot of times when we get into, especially on YouTube or Instagram, you get into this thing of apologetics and debate. And I'm not saying this isn't necessary. It is necessary. But too much energy is being put on a lot of these news stories and a lot of these, trying to win the argument. But say you've won the argument, now you got to win the heart and the soul of the person, and you got to keep them into it. You can't just leave them in the dark. And I think, right, we always think and we do know that the greatest light comes from Jesus Christ. But we also should reflect on the lives of the saints as pathways to getting there. And one thing that I've noticed about all the saints that we'll probably be reviewing is that they all share in their step of humility, right? And in the world today where we have a lot of things, okay, bad political leaders, whoever you want to think of, or certain events that kind of come in, we're putting too much faith on particular people who have a flawed human nature who don't have God's grace inside them. And you've always probably heard the quote, be the change that you want to see into the world, right? Well, God wants that for us as well. But you have to be an active participant in said grace, to make a connection with God, and to find within yourself if you can make a positive world and live this Catholic life, right? And so we saw that drought, and we're like, okay, we hear people doing current events, we hear people doing apologetics. We're here to go in and let's dive deep into the hagiography, the lives of the saints, to see if we can at least provide our viewers, even ourselves, something that we can get closer to God, because our goal should always be so that we can all become saints and to trying to sanctify ourselves. So, would you say that's an accurate?
I think that's very accurate. I also think both of us, when we kind of established that we thought there was we would like to see this more from the church. You're a historian by trade.
Right.
Your student loans prove that, and so sorry.
Low blow, but true.
My student loans prove I'm a missionary. In default, I'm kidding, but you're a historian by trade. I am I guess I'm currently a missionary. I'm actively employed as a missionary, but when I was in school, did a lot of theology. I also did a lot of English. Yeah, double degree, baby. But with the theology, I specifically kind of learned how to. I tailored it myself between my thesis and stuff. That I did a lot on the Franciscan order and the works of Franciscan saints, specifically Saint Francis, but also how to kind of approach the study of other orders and stuff. So we kind of looked at it and went, "You're a historian by trade. I've done a lot with specifically the Franciscan order, but the saints' works, and that's like what the combo you need to do hagiography, to do the study of saints and their works." And it was like, cool, 2-for-1 combo. And then I don't use any of that in my own job. I'm kidding. I do, but at the end of the day, I want to proactivate my brain into actually getting back into this. I think you did too. We both kind of talked about how we need to read more saints, go over some stuff.
I mean, I was, reading, St. Augustine, reading Confessions, started to read City of God, haven't finished it yet. And I also started dabbling into like some of the Carmelite. So for me, it was St. Teresa of Avila, and then it was St. John of the Cross. I had to put down St. John of the Cross because I just thought to myself, I'm not ready. Like, I genuinely felt like this man was attacking my very being, and he was right. But when I think about that, I go, how would that also resonate with other people? Like, how could we share this, but also make this a thing that would be fruitful for other people? Because when you go, like I said, when you go on YouTube, you get into that spiral of thinking everything is going to end and you have nothing that you can do to change it. And that's not true. You have communities. You have local stuff. Don't dwell in despair without understanding God's grace and mercy.
Yeah, that's actually awesome. But yeah, the culture that we've created, I think we need to rejolt the saints' lives back in. I was thinking about this because we were talking about obviously the parish that we both met at and how awesome it was. It was Saint Gabriel of the Sorrowful Mother. It was not the angel Saint Gabriel. It was Passionate Saint who died before, younger than either of us are now. And even just, we see all this imagery of the saints. I mean, have you ever really stopped to think about what your parish, if your parish is named after a saint, but like what that means? Or do you just say, I go here? Think of places in this own country, St. Louis, literally every parish in Louisiana. It's like, is named
Well,
after
Louisiana itself is named after.
Maryland. Um,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said that like the
Maryland.
most. I don't know.
Maryland.
Maryland.
I want
I
me to get some old B.
I know
All
everyone
the
up there.
Marylanders are gonna hate that.
Yeah, I know everyone up there pronounces it
Sorry.
like Merland, but that is what it's named after. There's so much imagery around us that the purpose of it is to point us back to these holy men and women of God that the church has specifically set out for us to learn from. And I think we just take it for granted a lot of times. I also think we are not biblical scholars by any means, so that was off the table.
No, sorry. We watch those guys on YouTube who seem more scholarly or scholastic, but we're we're not that guy, pal. All right,
Not that guy.
But I mean, at the same time, too, what you were saying though, Eli, was that we don't reminisce enough on the lives of the saints or understand on them, right? When I found out, so take for example, okay, Saint Gabriel of Our Sorrowful Mother. We were thinking about, okay, times are dark, things are hard. The dude was living with, what was it, tuberculosis, his
I
entire
think, yeah.
near his entire life. He also lived through certain wars between, it might have been the Italian wars of independence, or just a particular war between different Italian city states before the Kingdom of Italy became one. And so he's got a whole story too involving him, and stopping stopping a bunch of people trying to pillage his town, with him firing a gun. By the way, he is considered to be the patron saint of guns, and because of this action.
Based. Sorry, a
Yeah.
based apartment called.
But I mean, but it's but we're how far deep do we really go into, and even with some of these other stories, do we get into the ministries, the services that these guys do, or some of the inner workings of how they became saints? Because we can go and say, all right, well, Catholic Church does universities, it does schools, but it's because it comes from a reality and a morality grounded in the Catholic Church. None of this makes sense until you have the mindset that we have to help people in need, right? You have to do certain things, and that we also have to better ourselves. And in an age where we get so morally relativistic, we need to understand that there are cultures, there are religious systems and lack of systems that don't believe what we believe as Catholics. And we need to recognize that and say, we're not going to be moral relativists. We're going to be Catholic, right? And we're going to follow, what we know to be true, right? And do our best to help other people while doing it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to remind ourselves of that. And pretty much, I will say, don't buy saint books off Amazon. They ship you the wrong things. I have found that out the ultimate hard way. But yeah, I think a lot of these writings are eternal, and there's so many beautiful things from the early church fathers to the medievals to the moderns, and even people that aren't, eventually we'll probably cover some people that aren't fully canonized yet, but recognized as blessed or servants of God, because I'm going to get you to read Dorothy Day eventually. But I love my girl. Yeah, there's so much we can learn from in that
Right.
regard. So
Beautiful. Well, thank you for coming to the Reliquary. We do these every week, and please pray. Thank you.